This is QB Unfiltered. I'm Coach Keith Simons. This is my take. Today, Super Bowl 58. Yesterday, Super Bowl 58 was played, and I'm going to give you my observations and my takes from the game. Let's start with what went on before the ball was actually kicked off. Now, if you want a good laugh, Google Super Bowl 1 played between the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs in the LA Coliseum. And take a look at the documentary they have on that game and the coin toss before the game. And what you're going to see is one referee and a coin, a couple captains from each team, and one cameraman. And that was it. They flipped the coin. One team said, we'll take the ball. The other team said, we'll kick that way. And then they just played football. Now contrast that with what the Super Bowl has become. And let's talk about Super Bowl week. Now, it's every player's goal to get to the Super Bowl, but I know that every player also dreads the bullshit that they've got to go through on the week leading up to the game, where both teams now are in the city where the game's going to be played. And the players have to go through these mandatory media sessions with these ridiculous reporters who are asking questions that have everything to do with everything except the game. Now, can you imagine the conversations and questions and topics that these guys had to discuss this week? I would imagine that Travis Kelce's girlfriend was topic number one. I would imagine that there was some racism thrown in there just for kicks. And, you know, the players and the coaches, all they want to do is just play football. And so, you know, you go through this stuff before the game, and Roger Goodell really needs to have a conversation with Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, and ask him how them bowing down to the woke commandments, what that did for the NBA. And because Goodell, you know, getting his pockets lined, got to be getting his pockets lined to be doing the stuff that he's doing. It's absolutely ridiculous, the woke nonsense that the NFL has injected into its league and into its games. And what a great stage to present that nonsense to the world in the Super Bowl. And that's exactly what they did. So here we go. Game starts. San Francisco came out and hit Kansas City in the mouth in the first quarter, and I think it stunned the Chiefs. They set the tone on the very first play of the game. San Francisco ran a downhill run play, and their offensive line stood Kansas City's D-line up and put them on roller skates and drove their ass 7 yards downfield. And I think that the intensity and the speed of the 49ers on both sides of the ball kind of put Kansas City on its heels. And it also, I think, caused a little bit of panic to set in with Kansas City. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go. But it was obvious to me in the first quarter in particular that San Francisco was playing much faster than Kansas City was at every position and on both sides of the ball. Okay, I kept saying to myself in the first quarter, in which Mahomes threw for 16 yards. Kansas City had 25 yards of offense in the first quarter. Okay, it's the first time in the last 8 playoff games that they didn't score on their opening drive of the game. And Mahomes threw for 16 yards and just looked hurried, urgency in his game. And I kept saying to myself, with the pass rush that the Niners are putting on him, and with Kansas City running deeper downfield routes where Mahomes had to hold on to the ball longer, I kept saying to myself, Andy Reid, let's go to the quick game. You've got to get Mahomes in rhythm with some quick, easy throws. Okay, there's too many times now where he's dropping, holding on to the ball and getting rushed and hurried on a throw, or dropping and bailing out of the pocket. And Tony Romo said this at halftime. He said, I think Patrick Mahomes needs to slow down and let the game come to him. He's playing too fast upstairs, which was exactly what I was thinking. One of the knocks on Mahomes, holes in his game are so minute. He's such an unbelievable quarterback. But one thing that has been noticeable to me is I think he feels the rush a little bit more than what he should. And I know that sounds weird and funny, but what I'm saying is there are times where he bails out of the pocket when he doesn't have to do that. And there are also times, and it happened in the first half of this game, where they're showing end zone shots, replays, where they're filming it from behind him, where you can see the receiver routes, in camera. And there were times where Kansas City's receivers are sitting down in the hooks right over the ball, 8-10 yards downfield, all by themselves, and he's not seeing them. Now, you can say, okay, well, he was keying to the right or he was keying to the left. No, he was keying downfield, and I think he had more attention on the pass rush than he did on getting his feet set and delivering the ball in rhythm. Now, that dissipated as the game went on, and that's a tribute to Mahomes, but also to Andy Reid in some of the routes and concepts that he started to call. But Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes definitely weren't on their game in the first quarter. Now, Brock Purdy, on the other hand, looked polished and poised. I've said this about Purdy all season long. His demeanor and expression on his face doesn't change the entire game. Total calmness. All right. And in the first quarter, he's able to drop and look around to 1, 2, 3 reads and deliver, or drop, plant, and throw in rhythm. And when you allow him to do that, he's pretty damn good. Now, that situation changed for him as the game went on, and his performance also took a dip when he started to throw the ball under duress and having guys in his face. But in the first quarter, he was able to stand in there and throw it, and he was throwing dimes all over the place. Okay, Travis Kelce. He's a great player, one of the greatest tight ends to ever play in the NFL. And, he is really a hybrid. I wouldn't call him really a tight end. He's a big slot receiver who can run. And him and Mahomes have got a chemistry like no other. But the bullshit that he pulled on the sideline with Andy Reid is there are no words for it. And that's a big reason why there's a lot of coaches that aren't coaching in the NFL because of that shit right there. It's the same scenario as Dennis Allen had when Jameis Winston said, screw you to the coaching staff. I'm not going to take a knee down against Atlanta. I'm going to run a play that I want to run. And after the game, Dennis Allen just smiles at the camera and goes, yeah, these guys are just being competitive. And Andy Reid kind of did the same stuff after this game. If Reid is coaching at the JUCO level or the high school level, and Travis Kelce did that shit to him, Reid would have told him to take his shit off and go over and sit on the bench. It's absolutely ridiculous. So all of the great stuff that he does when the ball's snapped and we're actually playing is wiped out when he does stupid stuff like that. Now, I've said this before about Tony Romo. Tony Romo does a great job announcing. I don't think he's the best. I think Greg Olson is the best. But Romo's good, and he was good in this game. However, one of the complaints I have about him is he will not call bullshit on the players when they're doing bullshit stuff. And I've said it before, when it's obvious that running backs are taking the easy way out and refusing to pass block and just diving into the ground and letting their blitzing linebacker tattoo the quarterback, and Romo won't say anything about it. What a great opportunity for him yesterday to educate the young football players watching this game on TV, to tell them, for as great a player as Travis Kelce is, that behavior is inappropriate and there's no need for it ever on a football field between a player and a coach. What a great teaching moment. But he just glosses right over it and doesn't say anything. That's disappointing. Okay, so earlier this week, I saw a video of Tom Brady talking with Steve Young. It was great. It was on Sirius XM. And they were talking about calling plays and not snapping the ball when you know you don't have the right play called. And I've also talked about this with other teams in playoff games this season. The Houston Texans against the Baltimore Ravens a couple weeks ago, C.J. Stroud snapped the ball twice when he knew that their pass protection couldn't block an edge guy coming off the left side, and they snapped the ball anyway. And he ended up either getting sacked or having to scramble and getting a yard or two or losing yardage. The point is that shouldn't be happening at this level. And it happened again yesterday. So San Francisco's got the ball. They're going to throw it. It's obvious that there's a guy that's going to be coming off the edge to the left. Purdy knows it, and the left offensive tackle knows it. Now, he's got a guy on him, and that's not his responsibility, but he points out there and basically says, hey, this dude's coming on the snap. And San Francisco didn't do anything to adjust their protection. They didn't do anything for throwing the ball hot. Purdy snapped it, tried to get the ball off, throwing it early, but then got lit up. And they very, very easily could have called targeting on that play. I mean, he took a torpedo shot right underneath the chin, but that didn't have to happen that way. And Romo talks about it later on in the telecast when he says, Brock Purdy's young and he's going to learn that you don't snap the ball when you don't have the right protection on, or if you've got a matchup, with a receiver that you like against one of their lesser defensive backs or safeties or outside linebackers, you get the protection right so that you can throw that ball and hurt them. And yeah, Brock Purdy's going to learn, but and the same as C.J. Stroud. And so Brady's point was, don't waste plays running either running zone routes against man-to-man or running man routes against zone, or snapping the ball if you don't have the right pass protection on, because it's just a wasted play. Okay, the last drive for Kansas City of the first half. They zip it right down the field. What was different? Tempo, quick game. Tempo, quick game. And they go right down the field. But then what do? They settle for a field goal. How many times in this game did Kansas City get in the red zone and come away with either no points because they turned the ball over or settled for a field goal? And this was one of those. So they zip the ball down there and they get inside the 10, and then they basically just take the air out of the ball. They run a run play, and it was like they lost all urgency and they said, okay, we'll just settle for 3 points. That was kind of disappointing. The first half ended with San Francisco up 7-3, and it was sort of a yawner at that point in time. So let's go to the third quarter now. And Kansas City comes out of the gate in their first drive. Pacheco fumbles the first play, which is a pitch to him. He fumbles it and they end up recovering. Mahomes then completes a pass. And on the third play, Mahomes throws a pick. So Kansas City is still not in the groove. Kansas City's defense stepped up big because after that pick, they got a big stop and made the Niners punt the ball back. That was a huge defensive stand. And you can talk about Mahomes and you can talk about Purdy and you can talk about McCaffrey and you can talk about Kelsey, but both defenses really played pretty good in this Super Bowl. And they came up with some big plays when they needed it. Now, one thing I want to interject here, and I always am amazed and amused at the sideline reporters of these NFL games. They just have such insightful information. It's always really interesting to listen to. And so they bring the action down to the sideline reporter. I don't know the dude's name. And he says, yeah, I just talked with Coach Kyle Shanahan coming out, and this is what he said about the second half. You ready for this? He said, quote, "We have to capitalize on every opportunity." Thank you for that. That's good stuff. The fans out there in TV land are richer because of that. And now we know what San Francisco's second half game plan is. Guys, I'm telling you, guys, there are 3 phases to winning football. And special teams will win games for you, and they will get your ass beat in a hurry. And we're going to talk more about special teams because I think it was the biggest play of the game coming up here in a minute. So I kept saying to myself now in the third quarter, Andy Reid, more quick game. Andy Reid, more quick game. And what have I always been preaching on this podcast for OCs and NFL offenses? Punch screens or screens in general, quick game, and crossing routes. Okay, more on those as we go. All right, another special teams mistake. This one is Kansas City punting, San Francisco returning. Now, anytime that the punt can't be fielded by the punt returner, he's got to be yelling out some sort of a term which alerts his teammates to just turn and run. Get the hell out of there so they don't get hit by the ball. You never know what the ball is going to do when it hits the ground. They take some crazy-ass bounces. So this punt returner can't field the punt. It lands in front of him. I don't know if he didn't make the call. The generic call for that is Peter, Peter, Peter. That's to tell your teammates, get out of there. Okay? Either he didn't say anything or his teammate didn't hear him, but you got one of his buddies that's trying to block, 8 yards in front of the play, and the ball kicks when it hits the ground and hits this guy in the heel, and now it's a live ball to where San Francisco's punt returner, instead of falling on the ball, tries to pick it up and run with it, and he botches it, and Kansas City recovers. Now, I'm on Romo about stuff that he misses and doesn't call guys on, but like I said, I really think that he did a great job in this game, and here's some examples of it. He said, when Purdy gets older, he'll just change the protection. So he's talking about they got a matchup where McCaffrey motions out and lines up as a slot receiver, and they got a matchup on a guy for Kansas City that McCaffrey's going to eat his lunch, right? Except the protection isn't right, and Purdy can't get the ball to McCaffrey. So Romo says, when he's older, he'll just change the protection. He'll tell the tight end to stay in because I've got number 23 on this matchup, and we're going to gash the defense. Right on the money. Romo also said, and I love this, San Francisco's receivers really stock block because they have a saying, If you can't block, no rock. Okay? Imagine how much better your offense would be if your head coach, offensive coordinator, and receiver coach had that mantra for their receivers. Because you see NFL receivers that could give a shit about stock blocking. And that's the difference between a lot of yards in games and missed touchdowns, is how your receivers block on the perimeter. I've said this before, stock blocking is want to. All right. A lot of these divas playing receiver, they don't want to stock, so they don't stock. And a lot of these coaches go, well, we just pay him to run fast and catch the ball. Bullshit. If you take a guy and you say, if you don't block, you don't play, that's pretty good motivation. It's amazing how that motivation transforms that guy into a stock blocking machine. And San Francisco's receivers get after it on the perimeter, and Romo highlighted that. That was really good. He's also talking about the matchups that both Reed and Shanahan got with their receivers on the defensive players that they wanted the matchups on. And he said, get your best players on their worst players. So, like one play in particular, they motioned Ayuk to get him in man coverage on a safety. Okay, safeties can't cover like corners can cover. And anytime you get one of your best receivers, outside receivers, on a safety playing man coverage, you're going to win. And so that was a great job of pointing that out. And then he missed a big one, though, I thought. And that was the touchdown that Mahomes threw to Valdez-Scantling. And it was a little seam route. And he kind of explained it, but he really didn't tell the viewers why Valdez-Scantling was so wide open in the end zone for the touchdown. And so here's what happened on that. San Francisco lined up in two safeties high, all right? And on the snap of the ball, the safety on Valdez-Scantling's side dove down, and they played like cover 3 down there, which is amazing to me that any NFL team would play cover 3 against anybody, let alone a team that knows what they're doing throwing the ball. But they dove that guy down to like curl the flat. But this safety on the opposite side, instead of working to the middle, stayed on this hash. And there was nobody when Valdez-Scantling got past that slot defender. There was nobody there on the hash to run that seam. And that's what he ran, that little seam. That's easy pitch and catch for Mahomes. And Romo could have explained that a lot better. But overall, besides that and the Kelsey meltdown on the sideline, that garbage, I thought Tony Romo had one of his better games that I've listened to this year. Okay, fourth quarter now. The Niners, 4th and 3, huge play. They run a quick out to Kittle. Not the world's greatest route, but Purdy threw a freaking dime. Now, that's a 4-yard quick out, but the key is the quarterback's throw. Because when you put it out in front to where Kittle doesn't have to break stride and you just catch the ball and turn it up for the first down, that's the key. If you throw that ball slightly behind him, you throw it low, you throw it high to where he has to adjust to it, he might get tackled short of the first down. And just a dime by Purdy on that. Okay, now comes the biggest play of the game. San Francisco lines up, and they are going for the extra point after scoring a touchdown, and the PAT gets blocked. Biggest play of the game. Instead of a 4-point lead now, it's a 3-point lead. And man, does that come in big at the end of the game. Okay, so Kansas City needs to score now. What do they do with their passing game? Crossing routes. Yes, they start hitting the Niners with crossing routes. Crossing routes are great against man or zone. But when you're getting man coverage, they can't cover crossing routes. Can't cover them. And Kansas City starts to gash San Francisco a little bit with those crossers. 48 seconds to go. Kansas City's got a 3rd and 2, and a great call by Reed. They throw, knowing they're going to get heat from the Niners, they throw a screen. Here we go. Screens for a big first down, and then a gash crossing route to Kelsey. Another crossing route. And but Kansas City has to settle for another field goal. And with 3 seconds to go in the game, it's tied up. And to really, I think, paint a pretty good picture of Kansas City's entire aura around this team is with 3 seconds to go in the game of a tie game in the Super Bowl, and you've got the receiver, Rice, Kansas City's receiver, on the sideline arguing with Mahomes about why he didn't get the ball thrown to him instead of throwing it to Kelsey on a back shoulder vertical in the end zone. Unbelievable. Now, the one thing I liked, Mahomes bowed his neck and got right in his face. You know, I'm sure he pulled a Tom Brady and a Peyton Manning on him and told him to shut his damn mouth and just play, which is exactly what he should have told him. Okay, overtime. Now, for all of the second half and into overtime, Brock Purdy now is out of rhythm. He's got guys in his face, and it's a different game for him throwing the ball now, not nearly as effective. One camera shot that I absolutely loved in this game was the close-up that they had of Purdy's dad in the stands with his eyes closed. You know, parents just go through absolute hell in the stands watching their sons play. And that was a cool moment. Okay, I've always said quarterbacks always know where your running back is. Always know where your back is. And Purdy checks the ball down to McCaffrey in the flat, and McCaffrey does a dead leg, and he's gone down the sideline for a huge play. Defenses can't account for running backs in the passing game. Now, Kansas City's got to score. Obviously, we come down to a 4th and 1, and here's another great call by Andy Reid. He runs a boot, run fake, boot, where he rolls Mahomes to the right, where he's got a run-pass option with Kelsey out in front of him. So Mahomes is either going to run it for the first down or he's going to flip it. Short little flip to Kelsey for the first down. Good call. Very good call. They get the first down. Then they've got a 3rd and 7, and what do they call? Crossing route. Again, a crossing route. Big play, big first down. And that sets up now the game-winning touchdown by the Chiefs. And let's talk about what happened here. Okay, they bring the outside receiver to the right in motion. And what that does, as soon as he starts to go in motion, now when he returns back out on that shoot route, he's got his defender out leveraged. He's going to beat him to the flat. Okay. Now, the key to this is Kelsey running that seam route, which he runs and effectively becomes a rub type deal. And the attention is on Kelsey. All right. His defender can't switch off and run with that shoot route. The shoot route's got his defender out leveraged with that motion, and then he beats him back out to the outside on the snap of the ball. And then they roll Mahomes to get him out to where he can see it and also give him a run option. Now, what Mahomes does, and this is another one where Romo could have talked about this more, he touched on it very briefly. If you look at the replay of this from ground level where the camera is right in Mahomes' face, as he's rolling, he knows he's going to throw that shoot route, but his eyes are on Kelsey to hold everybody else. It's a Magic Johnson no look. I'm looking this way. I know I'm going that way. Easy pitch and catch, touchdown, game over. At the end of the day, the MVP went to the most deserving guy, Patrick Mahomes. He really is amazing. If you think of all the nonsense that he has to deal with in his life and with his team, and he goes out and does the same stuff game after game after game. And I wrote down in my notes at the end of this game, Mahomes is a baller. He's a baller and a grinder. Okay? He looked anything but the man in that first half. And he stayed with it, and he stayed with it, and he made plays, and he made throws. And, you know, I talk about the stuff that he has to overcome. They have a bunch of bullshit nonsense that went on with their football team this year. All right. And he's always got bullshit nonsense going on with his family. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. He's only had 2 slip-ups as far as I'm concerned this season. The first one was when he actually called Taylor Swift a member of their team. And then the second one was when he lost his mind in the post-game press conference after the Buffalo debacle, when the referees did their job and called an illegal formation when one of his receivers lined up 12 yards offsides. Other than those 2 gaffes, man, what a stud number 15 is. What a baller. Sunday, he threw for 333 yards with suspect receivers. You know, at the end of the day, Kelsey is a dude that you can bank on, but everybody else that he's throwing to, it's hold your breath. And Mahomes, after the game, says all the right stuff, classy comments. He is the face of the franchise for the Chiefs, and he's the face of the NFL. And if Goodell doesn't screw the NFL up with his other bullshit and he just lets Mahomes do his thing, then he's in a good spot and a good place. So the second half yesterday was good football. And at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes can freaking ball. That's my take. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.